Well, no one ever told me I couldn't do anything, so I suppose leadership came from the idea that there were no boundaries, and I was always a bit of a precocious child and a little bit bossy. I remember in my childhood diary reading that my best friend told me to quit acting like an adult.
When I walk around the community, papers, wrappers, bottles, and cans I see. When I see the people who throw the stuff down, I say, put it in your pocket, not on the ground. Put it in your pocket, not on the ground.
Well, I think my interest in litter has to have gone back to when I was a child. And my mother was a huge influence on this because she was a nature lover from the time she was a young person and was an ardent recycler and environmentalist even before they had a word for that. Prior to curbside blue box collection, she was going to the depots with her cans and bottles. And so I learned about the environment from my mother. One thing did happen when I was 9 years old and my family went out west. My 3 siblings and my mother and I piled into a 1956 Ford and drove out west to visit my aunt and uncle in Alberta. And we went on an outing to a hot springs and a swimming pool. My uncle was a fierce smoker in those days. And as a child in my bathing suit and bare feet, I was walking behind him and I stepped on a lit cigarette butt that he had discarded. And I clearly remember that, squawking and going, ow! And he looked at me and said, you should have been wearing shoes. And I think somewhere in my subconscious that resonated that no, it's not that I should have been wearing shoes, it's that that lit item shouldn't have been there in the first place. I guess in 2012 began by setting up a website and starting a newsletter and taking a program around to the local schools.
But we remind them that part of the littering equation to get rid of litter is pick up, 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 pick up.
I was riding my bicycle, I guess the year was about 2010, and a young woman at the age of 15 started running after me and knew my name, Miss White, Miss White, and explained to me that when she was in grade 5, we'd brought the program to her school, and she actually sang a couple of the key lines of one of our signature songs, which is "Put it in your pocket, not on the ground." And she remembered that, and that had been 6 years prior. And she was in grade 10 or 11 at the time and said, none of my friends litter and neither do I.
I see the bubble gum, I see the plastic cup. If you throw it down, instead please pick it up. I've looked at every angle and the answer I found is to put it in your pocket, not on the ground. Put it in
Music has been a part of my life since I was born. My father was a very gifted musician who made a name for himself leading choirs. Alex King, my partner, has been engaged in music for most of his adult life, and he's written a number of songs that have made the charts and continues to work in bands today. And then the next step along the way was the decision to apply through the Environmental Bill of Rights to seek the interest of the Ministry of Environment for the province of Ontario in studying the issue of littering.
Think of the environment. Look at the state of
The best thing to do was to use this provision in the Environmental Bill of Rights that allows any two citizens to ask the government to study any issue. And I filed my application, and with my fingers crossed, hoping that Ontario would want to review littering. Unfortunately, the province did not want to do that at the time, and under the rules, one can only advance a topic every 5 years.
Stuff in your hands. Look for the nearest garbage can. Place it in the proper bin. Do it, do it, do it.
I mean, my dream is to have some angel investor who's a diehard environmentalist set me up so that I could do more good things. And just to give you an example of some of the things I've been able to do as one person, I was able to get LED advertising messages on Highway 427 and the Don Valley Parkway. the information signs. I was able to get a litter message on there, which doesn't sound like it would be such a hard thing to do, but it was a real battle, and I take pride in the fact that I succeeded. Another thing I did that I was very proud of was I took on the multinational pharmaceutical company Pfizer. I took exception to some of their ads for quit smoking products where they depicted a woman littering in one of their commercials. And I got them to reframe their ads and come up with a more responsible portrayal of smokers where they are using ashtrays.
Never, ever, 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 litter, 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 litter. Never, ever, 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 litter, 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 litter.
We have the chemicals from littered cigarette butts leaching into the water system. And the point needs to be made that 80% of all litter found in the seas and lakes emanates from land. So we're not only polluting the land, but we're polluting the oceans. I was able to find funding through Keep America Beautiful to bring a cigarette litter prevention program to 3 business improvement areas in Toronto, 3 BIAs in Toronto, had ashtray installation programs and funding provided through Philip Morris Tobacco.
And you look, and they look around for a bin, and then they put it in the can. Yeah, do it, I know you can. Do it, I know.
Just rounded off to $20 million a year just picking up litter. That's $20 million that could be used to fill potholes, to build children's playgrounds, to do any manner of wonderful things for this city. But there's environmental impacts. Litter is harmful to wildlife and birds. They mistake it for food. Cans thrown in a field become mashed up with the animal feed. Cows can eat that feed and then find their intestines are shredded by pieces of metal that were in the cans. You have turtles and sea life entrapped by fishing lines and beer tabs and plastics and bags, suffocating, strangling. Birds caught in trees and errant plastic bags that are flying around everywhere. So there's a real impact of litter on the life of our special creatures.
Do it, I know you can. Do it, I know you can. And that's the shtick.